So as I've said before, I'm hesitant to give out relationship advice. I don't want to specifically tell people they should do this or they shouldn't do that. I think ultimately, you should make the decision for yourself as far as anything, but specifically relationships, because it's one of those things where if you succeed, you want it to be because you made the right decision. If you fail, you want it to be your failure or your regret. You never want to like listen to someone else's decision and then make that decision based on what someone else said, and then therefore you regret taking someone else's advice. So the best thing I can do is just offer up my own anecdotes. I've had friends come to me and say that they like asking me for advice, and that's because I don't like to tell people what to do, like especially as far as decision making. What I'll do is I'll like take in all the information they have. They'll give me the information. I'll say, okay, well, based on your information, you have two options. You can do this, or you can do this, or maybe there's a third option, or whatever. So these are the options. This is what I see what will happen. Well, what I foresee happening if you take this option. This is the pluses, positives, and benefits. This is the what I foresee happening with this one. These are the positives and benefits, and it just depends on which outcome you're more willing or more looking to take. And then people are like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then I just like to lay everything. That's the way I solve problems. That's the way I look at these things. So I think my friends like to come to me, and they like, kind of seeing the same, getting their own thing. Oh my gosh, cool! Somebody just sent me a coupon. Sorry, got distracted. So I'm gonna talk about my first relationship. Yesterday's or the video that I recorded earlier today led me into thinking about. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I don't know if she's going to ever see this video. She still follows me on social media, so it's possible that she might come across it. And if I say anything that sounds negative, I mean, sorry, it's just the way I feel about it. So, my first relationship was probably a big mistake. My first serious relationship, there you go, was probably a big mistake. If you ask her, she'd probably say the same thing. I think for me, I was 26, and I had pretty much no relationship experience at 26, which is crazy. I know, but I was pretty sheltered from all that stuff. I didn't learn about love. I didn't learn about relationships. I didn't learn any of that stuff from my parents. They were pretty typical Asian, like, we're not going to talk to you about this stuff, and you got to figure it out on your own. So it was probably a bad idea, because that was a time when I just started 4PP. We were just trying to get it off the ground. We were trying to do stuff. My schedule was super like packed, and plus I was terrible at time management at the time. She had just gone through a breakup, and it was a long, serious relationship. And she, like I've always said, whenever you break up with somebody, when you get through a relationship, you should take some time for yourself, figure yourself out, figure out what went wrong, why you broke it up, or why it didn't work out, and then just figure out what you want for yourself before jumping in another relationship. But I think it was a case where she wanted to be with somebody and she didn't want to be alone, and conveniently I was there. I still to this day don't know if I was exactly her type or not. I may have been her type, or I may have completely not been her type at all, and she was just interested in me because I was there for her, being a friend. And so it was something that I knew was logically did not make sense. I shouldn't have gotten involved in it. I knew that beforehand, which is one of the reasons why I was very adamant about not wanting to be in a relationship with her. Like, I was attracted to her, I liked her, but I was like, dude, it's a terrible idea, David, don't do it. And so we actually got in a fight about this because we were friends, we were hanging out, and she was like, let's date. And I was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you need to take some time, figure yourself out, and then maybe down the line, maybe we can start something up. And she's like, I don't like you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Fuck you. And she's like, I don't want to be your friend. And so she hung up on me. And I remember I was like, well, that's frustrating. So I went to go take a run to go run it off, and I probably ran for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I went a big loop around the neighborhood. And I remember I came back to my apartment. I was walking up the stairs. It's the 4PP apartment, so if you ever see like the stairs and stuff, I remember coming up the stairs, and I remember there was when I got home, I walked up the stairs and there was a girl standing there, and I double taked. I looked. I was like, oh, there's a girl here. Wow, she's kind of pretty. And I double taked, and when I looked the second time, it was her. And that's kind of what set me in motion to date her, because I was like, like, first of all, she obviously caught your eye, and for her to just randomly caught your eye again, when you didn't know it was her. Okay, that's one. And second of all, I've never had somebody like try that hard for me before. Like, she didn't have a car, and she lived on the other side of Austin, and she got in a bus, took the bus all the way down to God knows where, and then walked to my apartment and was sitting outside my apartment waiting for me to come home, because she thought I was pissed at her and not answering my phone. But I was like, oh, I went to her for a run, sorry. And then she was like, oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. And I was like, all right, well, let's date. And she was like, what? Why? I was like, well, I at the time was like, I'm gonna only date one person. I'm gonna marry that person, and that's the only person I'm gonna ever be with. That was my mentality back then. So it was one of those things where I was like, well, I have to be sure of the person before I date them. And I was definitely very not sure of her. All the signs were like, dude, this is not gonna work out well. But I took a chance, took a leap, and I'll always look at that first relationship as this is the analogy that I always tell people, is that you want to go swimming, and it's cold, and you like the water's. I bet you the water's cold, but you don't know how cold the water is, right? So you're like, kind of, you like dip a toe, and it's like, how cold is that? Well, I can't really tell because it's my toe, and I don't. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes in and just pushes you in, and that was my first relationship and breakup. The failure of the relationship. Cause you hit the water, you're like, you're like drowning, you're freezing, you're like getting water in your mouth, and it's terrible. But then like when it all settles down, it's freezing, and you're like, but like you're in the pool already, like at that point, whatever, dude, there's nothing you can do about it. Just enjoy it, dude. Just go swim around, and your world is smashed already, but whatever. And I think I've even told her that, and she probably did not take that as the compliment that I meant it to be. Sorry, but that's how I feel, man. Like, thank you so much for pushing me in the pool, because now my clothes are wet. I'm not cold anymore. I mean, I'm cold, but you know what? Now I can start swimming, and I can get over all the other bullshit that was holding me back. And that opened my doors to my relationships on the future with so many other great people. And yeah, so I don't know if I ever talk about it, but my relationship ended because she found someone else, and she found someone else while we were still together. And I can't completely blame her, because I don't think I knew what it took to be in a relationship, or I didn't know, like, I told you early in this video, I didn't have the time. I knew I didn't have the time, and I had a one-track focus. I was working on the website, and she was just a secondary thing, and it sucks. I didn't say it at the time, but I mean, looking back on it now, well, might as well be honest. She was a secondary thing. The website, the relationship was secondary. The website was my dream and is what I wanted to do. So that's what I poured all my time in. And a lot of times with relationships, I think people don't know what they want, or they don't really know how to, work it out. So it was just one of those things where it was like, well, I wasn't ready for it, and I wish I could have been more ready. And I don't know. There was a lot of things. So there was a lot of signs, and I wasn't seeing it. Like, I remember there was a time where it's a long story. My first relationship is a long story. There's a lot of things that happened. I just remember it was stupid of me, because there was always a guy like driving her home from work. So like I would used to drive her to work and then pick her up, drive her to work, and her work was like an hour away from me because it was on the other side of town. I'd have to sit through traffic, and I was just like annoyed. I was like, dude, I want to work on my site, but I gotta drive my girlfriend an hour. 1 hour. It's gonna take me an hour just to drop her off at work and come back. And I remember it got to a point where it was like she was like getting rides from somebody at work. Oh yeah, so and so is gonna drop me out from work. So and so is gonna pick me up. And in my mind, the trusting, dumbass guy I was like, oh well, that's nice. That's very nice of him. Not like thinking anything about it at all. And then, on top of that too, it was like, oh, I'm gonna get you a DS for your birthday, and she was like, oh, it's okay. So and so already got me a DS. Again, all very obvious clues of something was going on, but my dumbass, I was so focused and wrapped up in other things, and also naive, very very naive, very very just trusting. Like I don't think the lesson in this is to not be trusting of your girlfriend, but I think it's also a thing where you have to learn to guys have to learn to know how to. It's not just about getting a girlfriend, but keeping your girlfriend or keeping your wife, like always, like I've never, like all the girls I've ever dated, everyone was always like, well, David, why would you date her? Like you never know if she's my girlfriend. My girlfriend choices, my friends have always said, are questionable, because they're always like, well, how can you trust her? How do you know she's not going to go do the same thing to you or go date somebody else? And it's like, dude, if I'm doing my job, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to, why would she want to go date somebody else? Like, that's the way I ended up looking at it. It's not that she's a terrible person and she just, there's certain things she wanted. I wasn't there to give it to her. And like for me, from that first relationship, I learned like, oh well, shit. I need to do my part to make it so that she doesn't fall in love with somebody else. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the lessons I learned from my first relationship. I'll just end it like this. This video is going a little long, but I'll end it by saying, if you followed me in 4PP a long time ago, I don't know if you remember, but there was a time when I posted a video of me dancing to this Japanese song. I had this white shirt. I had long hair. I had the shirt that says I love rock, but the way I was holding my towel, it looked like it said I love cock. But yeah, and I was dancing around and just like, I'm a shy person. I'm a very reserved person. I'm not able to do that like stuff just on the go, fly, just hit the cameras, roll. But I remember that video was made like immediately after my breakup, and I just had all these like emotions and pent up like feelings that there was nowhere I could put them out positively. So I remember I made that video. I just danced around, and it was just a way for me to like release and try to feel better about the situation. And that's kind of always how I've handled breakups. I've been wanting to go into this topic too, but that's always how I've handled breakups and like disappointments. It's just, instead of focusing on all the bad stuff, I always want to like try to, what can I learn from this? What can I make from this? I'm going to make this better, and I'm not going to just like sit on my ass. But yeah, that's maybe for a video for another time. So yeah, I hope y'all got something out of this one. We'll see you later. I'll talk more about this maybe next. Bye.